Chapter 12. End of Vacation.
Mr. Vue, this is director Irvin. You might know his upcoming film, Once a Story.
Ah, a filmmaker, is it? That's cute. Well, visiting hours are officially over because I'm here to whisk my favorite author back to her rightful place,
He declared, his tone laced with exaggerated possessiveness. Without missing a beat, Frankie strolled over to Irvin and Skylar, smoothly inserting himself between them as he lightly tapped their joined hands apart, shooting Irvin a cheeky smile. Irvin's jaw tightened as Frankie settled himself far too comfortably in the chair beside Skylar, his vibrant energy filling the room. Frankie's hand fluttered dramatically to his chest, his gray eyes twinkling as he turned to Skylar.
My dear Lar, how could you not tell me you were unwell? What kind of a muse keeps secrets from her most loyal customers? Do you know the absolute panic I went through when Ethan told me? I nearly fainted on the spot.
Skylar sighed, rubbing her temples. Frankie, you're overreacting. I'm fine. Just a little tired, that's all.
Tired? Skylar, tired is for peasants who don't have me in their lives. You deserve rest fit for royalty.
Frankie's gaze shifted to Irvin, and his ever-present grin sharpened.
Speaking of which, what exactly are you still doing here? Surely you've done your part. You can go now, can't you?
Actually, I'm not going anywhere.
Frankie stood up, his eyes locked on Irvin like a challenge.
Not going anywhere. How quiet. But really, what more can you do? I'm here now, and trust me, no one takes care of my Lar like I do.
Irvin's lips pressed into a thin line as he leaned forward, his presence unshaken.
Funny, I wasn't aware she belonged to anyone, and for someone claiming to care for her, you seem more concerned about showing off than actually listening to what she needs.
Skylar sighed, looking back and forth between the two men. Irvin, Frankie, don't...
Oh, how clever. A filmmaker with a sharp tongue. Tell me, director, do all of your scripts come with this much audacity, or is it just me?
Frankie, stop! You're not helping. Frankie's face turned to a playful look of hurt as he dramatically flopped into the chair, crossing his legs with flair.
Not helping? Oh, Lar, I'm the only one who is really here for you. I bring laughter, happiness, and my loyal friendship to your side. What does he bring? I bet it's just stress and negativity.
He shot a smirk at Irvin. Irvin's jaw tightened, his tone low and sharp.
What I've brought is actual concern for her well-being, not an audition for the lead role in her life story.
Oh, so you think you're the noble, selfless type? How boring. Let me guess. You think looking all serious makes you the hero here? Spoiler alert, director. Skylar needs someone who can lift her spirits, not weigh her down.
Skylar slammed her hands onto the bed, startling both men into silence. Enough! Both Frankie and Irvin froze, their bickering interrupted by her rare outburst. Skylar glared at both of them, her cheeks flushed with frustration. Frankie, stop acting like this is a competition. And Irvin, stop rising to his bait. I'm not a prize for you two to fight over. Frankie's lips twitched as though he wanted to say something, but for once he held his tongue. Irvin sighed, his shoulders dropping slightly.
Skylar, I'm just trying to...
I know, she interrupted, her voice softer now but still firm. If you really care about me, either of you, you'll stop treating this like some silly competition and start acting more mature. Frankie shifted uncomfortably in his seat.
I was just trying to cheer you up, Lar.
Skylar gave him a tired look. I know, Frankie, but this isn't about you, or you, she added, glancing at Irvin. It's about me, and right now what I need is peace and quiet. Not a back and forth over who cares more. Irvin stood still, but not backing down. Frankie huffed dramatically, but eventually relented.
Fine. For you, Lar, I'll tone it down.
Skylar let out a deep breath, sinking back into her pillows. Thank you. Irvin pulled up a chair on one side of the bed, while Frankie remained perched dramatically on the other, each man eyeing the other warily. Ethan took a step back.
Should I come back later?
Skylar groaned. Don't you dare leave me alone with them. Ethan grinned, stepping forward.
Glad to see you're still your fiery self.
He gestured toward the two men with a teasing smirk.
So, who's winning?
Skylar threw a pillow at him. Irvin splashed cold water on his face, holding onto the sink as he stared into the mirror. Last night had been a mess of worry about Skylar, and even this small moment of relief felt too short. His mind kept going back to Frankie. Who was this guy? The way he stuck so close to Skylar and acted like he owned the place, it drove Irvin crazy. What was his deal? Straightening, he took a deep breath and headed back towards Skylar's room. As he turned a corner, he nearly bumped into Janet.
Irvin,
Janet said, her voice soft. She tilted her head, letting her hair fall just so.
how is Skylar?
What are you doing here?
I just finished shooting, so I came straight here.
She's stable now.
Irvin said flatly. Janet stepped closer, her hand lightly touching his arm.
You've been here all night, haven't you?
Her eyes scanned his face.
You look exhausted, Irvin. You really shouldn't push yourself like this.
I'm fine.
He said, brushing her hand away casually.
I'm not tired.
Janet's smile faltered, just for a second before she quickly masked it.
Of course. You're so dedicated. It's admirable, really.
Her gaze lingered on him a moment too long before she shifted gears.
I thought I'd drop in to see her. I mean, we don't always get along, but I do care. It's the right thing to do.
You don't need to come,
He said.
She's about to check out anyway.
Janet tilted her head, her expression hinting that she knew exactly what was on Irvin's mind.
You're very protective of her, aren't you? It's sweet, but you should let others share the burden. You don't have to do this all alone.
Irvin stopped and stared sharply at Janet.
Sky is not a burden.
Janet softened her expression, letting a trace of warmth seep into her tone.
I'm not saying she's a bad person, Irvin.
She began, her voice measured.
Really, it's just... sometimes the people we care about the most can be the hardest to support. I understand you, but she don't. Skylar, she's complicated. She pushes people away, makes everything harder than it needs to be. It's not your job to fix all of that. You deserve to breathe, to live your life without carrying someone else's weight all the time. I'm just saying I'm here to help you.
Janet reached out, her fingers closing around Irvin's hand.
I just want to be there for you.
Before Irvin could respond, movement from the end of the hall caught their attention. Skylar, Ethan, and Jackie stood there, their expressions a mix of surprise and skepticism. Skylar's eyes flicked to Janet's hand on Irvin's, her lips pressing into a tight line. "Wow," she said, her voice laced with sarcasm. "Didn't realize we were interrupting something so touching." Irvin swiftly pulled his hand away from Janet's grasp, while she tried to mask her embarrassment with a bright smile.
Skylar, how are you? I was so worried about you.
Skylar rolled her eyes. Right. She turned to Irvin, ignoring Janet completely. "Anyway, I need to talk to you. I'm heading back home tonight. Time's up on Jeju Island." Irvin's brow furrowed. He walked over to Skylar and gently pulled her aside, away from the others. His voice was quiet but emotional.
Sky, you're leaving me?
Skylar sighed, avoiding his gaze. "I only came here for a quick check-in, Irvin. A 5-day vacation. I'm leaving at 3 p.m. today." Irvin's eyes searched hers, and she could see the pain reflected in them.
Why didn't you tell me?
"I was going to," Skylar admitted, her tone tinged with regret. "But things got complicated. Besides, I need my meds to manage my condition." Before Irvin could respond, Janet strolled over, clearly having overheard their conversation. Her tone was light and friendly as she chimed in.
Skylar, leaving so soon? Why not stay another week? Then we can all head back together.
Skylar rolled her eyes at the sound of Janet's voice but refused to look at her. Instead, She plastered on a mocking smile. Thanks, but I'd rather go now. Who knows? If I stick around, it might not just be another rig. It could be a whole bridge falling on me next time. Janet's cheerful expression faltered, her smile vanishing as tension crackled between them. For a long moment, the two women locked eyes, the unspoken animosity hanging thick in the air. Jackie broke the tense silence with a sly grin, his eyes darting between Irvin and Janet.
Well,
He drawled, crossing his arms.
looks like you already got your hands full here, director.
He gestured toward Janet, smirking. Irvin glared at Jackie. Janet stepped in quickly, her tone overly sweet.
Oh, don't be silly. Irvin and I are just friends.
Irvin's jaw tightened.
You guys have it all wrong.
He said firmly, his gaze shifting to Skylar.
It's not what you think.
What? I'm just pointing out the obvious.
Jackie chuckled, clearly enjoying himself.
You and this beautiful lady standing here all close, whispering like it's some kind of secret rendezvous? Hard not to make assumptions.
Irvin shook his head at Jackie's comment and turned back to Skylar.
If you're leaving, I'm coming too.
That caught Skylar off guard. Her eyes widened slightly before she quickly masked it with a small smile. Irvin, you don't have to.
I want to.
He cut her off. Janet stepped forward, her tone light but urgent.
Irvin, you can't just leave. The crew needs you. You're the director, remember? We're on a tight schedule, and without you, things could fall apart.
Steven can handle it.
Janet let out a quick, incredulous laugh.
Steven? Sure, he's good, but he doesn't have your vision, Irvin. You're the heart of this project. You've been pushing this forward from the start, and if you leave now, it's going to show. The crew will feel it. The production will suffer. And honestly, so will your reputation.
Irvin frowned, her words hitting a nerve, but he held his ground.
Janet, you're a hired actress. What do you really know about how my crew and production operate? If I don't trust them, they wouldn't be here working with me.
Janet wasn't giving up. She stepped closer, her voice softening as if trying to appeal to his sense of responsibility.
Irvin, I know you care about Skylar, but this is your career, your passion.
Hey, you have no right to talk about my relationship with Irvin, Skylar said sharply, fixing Janet with a pointed glare. Janet's expression darkened as she met Skylar's gaze. If Irvin's staying, that's for me to discuss with him, not you. Skylar took a deep breath and turned to Irvin, her expression serious. Irvin, listen. This project isn't just any project. It's my story. You've been the one who's brought it to life, shaped it into something bigger than I ever imagined. So I think you should stay. Even though she desperately wanted him to come, Skylar kept that thought to herself. Irvin's gaze lingered on her, his expression shifting. It was as if he could read the words she wasn't saying, the emotions she tried to hide. Janet quickly interjected, her voice filled with agreement.
Exactly. Skylar's absolutely right.
Skylar's face tightened, unable to mask her irritation. Oh, don't help me! Janet blinked, feigning innocence.
Skylar, I was just agreeing with you.
I don't need your help, Skylar said curtly, rolling her eyes in frustration before turning to Ethan. Ethan, let's go,
Yes, Miss Katz.
Ethan said, stepping forward obediently. Skylar gave Irvin one last look, forcing a small smile despite the tension in her chest. Then she turned and walked away, Ethan following closely behind. Jackie sauntered after them, pausing briefly to smirk at Janet.
Nice to meet you, Miss Actress. Glad to know you and Mr. Director are friends. Makes my life a bit easier. Hope to see you again sometime.
With a mocking laugh, Jackie continued down the hallway, his teasing tone clearly meant to needle Irvin. Irvin clenched his jaw, his hands curling into fists at his sides as he watched them leave, the weight of Skylar's forced smile lingering in his mind. After their return from Jeju Island, the group barely had time to settle in before Ethan's phone buzzed with an urgent call. Skylar noticed the shift in his expression immediately as he answered.
Yeah, she'll be there.
Ethan said, hanging up with a mix of excitement and frustration.
That was the producer. They've lined up a last-minute interview about the film. You need to head over right now.
Jackie leaned against his suitcase, smirking.
Guess I can drive you there, huh?
Skylar sighed. Looks like it. But there's a problem. I don't have my meds with me, and I'll need them later. Ethan perked up.
I can grab them from the villa for you.
With a nod, Skylar followed Jackie, leaving Ethan to figure out the rest. At the villa, Ethan realized he'd underestimated the task at hand. Skylar's room was messy. Papers were everywhere in the studio. He checked the bedside table, then the bathroom cabinet, rifling through drawers and shelves, but the meds were nowhere to be found.
Where does she even put these things?
He muttered, growing frustrated. The sound of the door opening startled him, and he turned to see Irvin standing there.
What are you doing here?
Ethan asked, surprised.
When did you get back?
I came back to see Skylar.
Irvin replied casually, stepping inside.
The door wasn't locked. Where is she?
She's at some last-minute interview.
Ethan explained, rubbing the back of his neck.
She asked me to grab her meds, but I can't find them anywhere. Her room's a total mess.
Irvin glanced at the chaos with a knowing look.
She's organized in her own way.
He said, stepping into the room.
Let me help.
Ethan watched as Irvin moved around the room with focus, barely glancing at the mess. Irvin's eyes landed on a small decorative box tucked under a pile of notebooks on a shelf. He pulled it out, opened it, and spotted several pill bottles inside. One had Skylar's name on it.
Got it.
Irvin said quietly, picking up the bottle. Just as he was about to hand it to Ethan, something else caught his eye on the shelf below. It was an old box, a little worn. Curious, he opened it and found Skylar's old phone along with a tangle of chargers, cables, and small items that looked like keepsakes. Irvin paused for a moment, then shook off the distraction. He held out the bottle to Ethan.
Here.
He said simply. Ethan stared at the bottle, both relieved and impressed.
How did you know where to look?
Irvin shrugged lightly.
I know how Skylar thinks. She keeps important things in places that seem out of the way, but make sense to her.
Ethan took the bottle, his expression softening.
Thanks, man.
Ethan made his way to the door but paused, glancing back to find Irvin lingering by the shelf.
You coming?
Ethan asked, raising an eyebrow. Irvin nodded and took a step forward, but Ethan quickly raised a hand to stop him.
Actually, I'm in a rush. Could you lock up the villa for me?
Without waiting for a reply, Ethan rushed out, pulling the door shut behind him. Just before it closed completely, he flashed a quick smile at Irvin, who stood inside.
Hope you find what you're looking for, Mr. Irvin.
Irvin watched as the door closed, and the sound of Ethan's quick steps faded into the distance. The villa was quiet now, leaving him alone with the scattered pieces of Skylar's world. He turned back to the shelf, his attention drawn once again to the old worn box he had noticed earlier. He carefully pulled it down and opened it, revealing the contents more closely this time. Along with the phone and tangled cables were a few worn photographs, ticket stubs, and a small notebook with a cracked spine. Irvin hesitated, fingers brushing lightly over the items. These weren't just random keepsakes. They were pieces of Skylar's past, tucked away where only she could find them. Before Irvin even realized it, he was already scrolling through the phone as it rested on the charger. Each photo he saw pulled him deeper into the story of her past, the story of them. Skylar had kept all their pictures, every cherished memory frozen in time, still saved on her phone. His heart clenched when he came across a selfie of them on their second anniversary, their faces glowing with love and happiness. He couldn't stop the smile that crept onto his face, but it was a bittersweet one. As the flood of memories washed over him, he was reminded of all the laughter, the shared moments, and the connection they once had. They had been so perfect together, and yet the warmth of those memories only deepened the ache in his chest, a quiet pain that whispered of what was lost. As Irvin finished scrolling through her personal photos, The screen transitioned to her saved text attachments. A pang of guilt hit him. He knew he was crossing a line, but something deeper compelled him to keep going. There was so much about Skylar's life that felt like a mystery, things she wasn't telling him. That's when he saw it, a selfie of Janet with him in the background. Irvin's stomach twisted as he stared at the image. He couldn't recall when it was taken, but it had to be from their college days. In the photo, he was completely unaware of the camera, oblivious to Janet's presence. The next picture was similar, but felt even more unsettling. Janet was blowing a kiss in his direction. He scrolled further and uncovered more photos, each taken at different times and places, capturing Irvin from various angles, like the work of a secret admirer. A chill ran down his spine as unease settled over him.
What is going on? Where did these pictures even come from?
With his heart racing, he navigated to Skylar's contact list and found Janet's name. Hesitating for only a moment, he opened their messages. His chest tightened as he read the exchange. Janet had sent Skylar those photos along with taunting messages, talking about how she and Irvin made a great couple, how they were meant to be. It was clear Janet was trying to make Skylar jealous, planting seeds of doubt and insecurity.